Welcome to Talk Politics. I'm Ken Rockburn. On this week's program, the groups who receive money from the Department of National Defense defend themselves against charges that they are propagandists. We'll also take a look at the foreign policies of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and we'll meet the author of a scathingly funny political satire set right here in political Ottawa. All that ahead on Talk Politics. Stay with us. Political intrigue, sex scandals, backroom deals, a rogue Tory minority government, a reluctant, curmudgeonly rookie Liberal member of Parliament, and oh yes, a hovercraft. These are all ingredients in this novel. It's called The Best Laid Plans, written by former political aide, now communications and public affairs consultant, Terry Fallis, who joins me in the studio. Thanks for coming in, Terry.
Thanks for having me.
This is your first novel, and you're not a novelist by profession, are you?
I am not.
No. What was it that made you want to write a novel?
Well, writing a novel has been on my life list since I was in high school, just something I always wanted to do, and as a serial procrastinator, it's taken me some 30 years after that high school revelation to get it done. But always wanted to write. I'm a big reader, and I love to read novels that make me laugh and make me feel good.
So all the political content in here, and it is rife with political content, comes from your years working provincially and federally?
Yes, I worked on Parliament Hill in the mid-'80s and at Queen's Park with the Peterson government. And so it is drawn from that experience. I'm not recreating anything that happened to me. It really is a fictional account, but the process and the parliamentary procedure and the political intrigue that springs from my experience in politics.
Yeah. How long did it take you to map out the storyline for this? Because it gets complex.
Yeah, it took me. Well, the first half of the novel is really based on a short story I wrote probably around 2000 or 2001. And just an idea that appealed to me, and I decided to blow it out into a longer novel. But it probably took me a couple of years of it just rattling around and fermenting in my mind. The actual writing, once I had it all laid out, because I'm sort of an outliner by nature. I think it's the engineering side of me. Everything's got to be laid out methodically.
Right.
So when I started to write, it really only took me about 10 months of evenings and weekends and early mornings to write.
You know, it's interesting. I don't want to give the plot away because it does build up to a nice little denouement at the end, which so we don't want to spoil that for people. But the general idea here is that they've got to get somebody to run in a riding just outside of Ottawa, a Liberal to run in a riding just outside of Ottawa. And the guy who's assigned to do this, who's sort of doing penance for something, comes across this old fellow who teaches at the University of Ottawa and manages to convince him to do it. That's sort of it in a nutshell. But as I was reading it, I couldn't help but thinking, you say you worked in the Peterson government, I couldn't help thinking back to the days here in Ontario when Bob Rae and the New Democrats won. And I remember at the time, I knew people who had worked sort of behind the scenes who said, you know, they had polling captains who put their names up because they didn't have a candidate in a riding, and they won.
Right.
And suddenly they were shoved into this cauldron of politics, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing. You know? And I was reminded of that in here. You had a guy who reluctantly goes in, but then sort of, once he's there, kind of
accepts it.
Yes, accepts it and grabs onto it.
Yeah, it's true. I was there during those years, or shortly before the NDP came to power, and I remember those stories of people who went to bed on election night as a usually a sacrificial lamb in a riding that had never been held by the NDP, and woke up the next morning, went to the shop floor, cleaned out their locker, and some of them moved into cabinet, and that may have been a good thing. It was
or maybe not.
In action. Or maybe not. But
I'm not sure that Bob Rae would think it was a good thing now, but still, he's trying to forget that part of his life.
But that was in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
It's an interesting scenario where someone who had no intention of serving, but was achieving another end by throwing his name in the novel. It's kind of deal he strikes.
Yes.
So.
Meet Terry Fallis. Most of his clients know him as the president of Thornley Fallis, an award-winning PR firm that manages the corporate message for big guns like Travelocity and GM Canada. But for his entire life, Fallis has harbored a secret identity. Behind his Clark Kent glasses and button-down facade, another personality was lurking underneath, an alter ego who is funny?
3, 2, 1.
I can't do that.
You can't do it.
Can't do that.
You're going to do it.
Okay, that'll be a good one for the Christmas party. Now, don't make me laugh, Sammy.
Beneath his business-like exterior beats the heart of a humor writer. After years of writing speeches and marketing campaigns for corporate clients, Fallis finally sat down to write a short story, then turned it into a full novel. After 10 months of writing between running a business and running his family, the book was finally finished.
The notion was to plunk down in the middle of Parliament Hill the least likely character ever to arrive in the House of Commons, and just to sort of track that story.
Fallis has government as well as corporate clients, and he himself once spent time working in the political trenches for Jean Chrétien, so he wrote what he knew. A classic political satire, The Best Laid Plans follows the unlikely pairing of a Parliament Hill exile and a sham election candidate.
The lounge next to the dining room is populated with 30-year-old couches and chairs sporting strangely hued upholstery from the Shades of Internal Organs collection.
But once a book is written, every writer needs readers.
So I sent the manuscript out to a number of agents and waited and did some follow-up, and really wasn't successful in getting much of a reaction.
Fallis sent the book to some small publishing houses but still got nowhere. Summoning his entrepreneurial instincts, he forked over $4,000 of his own money to a do-it-yourself publishing outfit. He also made a podcast of the book that generated buzz, with 2,000 subscribers around the world. And then came the bombshell.
Well, it was complete shock. I was in Montreal on business that day. I just finished doing a presentation. I knew that the shortlist was being announced at 10:30 that morning.
The self-published book by the agentless first-time writer got nominated for Canada's biggest award for humor writing, the Leacock Medal. And Fallis won, beating out such heavyweights as Douglas Copeland of Generation X fame. Fallis is brand new to writing humor, but he's definitely getting the last laugh.
I think it's probably the closest thing to having a stroke, is how I felt, because I was unable to speak briefly, and I felt paralyzed, and it was quite a shock. I had to get up and leave the room for a while, because I was pretty well overcome.
The inexperienced author pocketed the $10,000 prize, yet still had no publishing deal. Here he is at a Leacock Awards meet and greet. But remember all those agents who took a pass on this neophyte author? Well, after the Leacock win, one of them had a change of heart.
The book is funny, it's true, and it's important.
Beverly Slopin turned Fallis down the first time, but now she's taken him on as her newest client. And she's getting a lot of calls from foreign publishers. They're as intrigued by Fallis's own story as they are by the story he wrote.
He is the innocent in the shark-infested pool of publishing, and he won. And so everybody in the international publishing industry has been cheering this.
And Fallis just landed a big-name publishing deal here at home. McClelland and Stewart will take the book to its presses this fall.